cleaned up and fitted the rear brake pedal and the cables associated with it, and then spent an age fixing wheels. I've just cleaned up this foot brake pedal, attached the rear brake cable and adjusted it. There's a return spring in behind there. The actual pedal itself on its pivot point's got a bolt that goes through. It's got an O-ring behind the pedal and an O-ring that goes on the back behind a big washer. All of these connections, both the bolt that goes through the middle and the clevises for the brake cable, and this is the handbrake cable, have both got little R-clips on the back as safeties in case they get loose. There's a stop here that adjusts the height of the pedal. I think the pedal needs to come up to about level. I've probably got that possibly a little high at the moment, and it activates there, so that's the sort of movement it's taking. You can see the brake lever at the back there operating. There's the clevis and the R-clip on the back there where the cable comes through to. There's a little bracket that bolts onto the side of the rear drum there. Now the handbrake cable, you see here the pedal can move, and this cable here, it's moving in that slot because you don't want the actual lever on the handlebar moving if you're just using your foot. This cable pulls on here to activate the foot pedal. The pedal, if I lean over, that's the pedal operating now from the handbrake. All of that takes a while to get adjusted. There's adjustment on the handbrake cable, there's adjustment here. This is the handbrake cable adjustment, this is the foot brake activation adjustment, this is the pedal stop adjustment. It's all got to work together. I had this handbrake cable adjustment a little bit too tight, and I couldn't make the interlock, the lock on the on the handlebar click in to hold the handbrake on. I released this a little bit. It's just taken a little bit of pressure off that, put a bit of slack in that because everything else is quite tight. A little bit of slack there. As this loosens up, it's going to be easier to operate the handbrake. Now, to get that pedal in place, the footrest had to come off because the pedal will hit this foot guide here, and you can't get the pedal in with the footrest in place. So that had to be released. It's taken all morning to clean up those two cables and get them operational. I've also fitted the speedo cable, speedo drive down here. The speedo cable goes through up to behind the odometer. I call it's a speedo cable, but in the end on this bike all it does is measure distances. All of my Suzuki wheels have been butchered by a previous owner and slotted out like this around the lug nuts, all four on each wheel. That's caused because I think the wheels have then been bolted on without even a washer on them, that you can see the swelling between the layers of metal here. Not so much there, you can see it there, and to some degree there. On the rear wheels that I've all fixed now, the nuts that were on here were not even staying tight. The wheel would end up flogging around on the studs and wallowing out more of the wheel. They were all a mess. The wheels also had some dents in the rim. I think one of the rear tyres hasn't even bedded properly on the bead. The bead hasn't bedded properly. I've been painstakingly going around each of these slots and cutting, and these two pieces haven't been cut to size yet, but I drilled a 10mm hole in a piece of 5mm thick material. You can see the thickness of that. Cut out this piece with an angle grinder that then needs to be individually fitted to the different size slots. These slots have been cut out by hand on an angle grinder and they're all different sizes. You can see that one there is narrower than this one. I've been painstakingly shaping all of these little slugs to fit into those slots. As you'll see there, they're the two remaining pieces I've got to do. I'm tacking them in place with, again, my chicken shit welding. One of the main things that does, it fills the gap in the thickness. You haven't got the nut wanting to wobble and loosen because it cocks sideways and goes down the hole. This is a filler piece. It's going to be welded to either side there with a small tack weld, but the main thing it does is it builds up the thickness in this area so that I will use a washer in future on all of them. I will use a little grinder thing to make sure the surfaces here and here and across the new piece are all level. So when you tighten down a lug nut, it's pulling the wheel on evenly. So I'm going to a lot of trouble to do that. You can see this wheel also looks awful, the paint. Well, I have wire brushed the whole wheel and I have used a phosphoric acid to try and convert a lot of the rust into something that I can paint over. I've spent days fixing these shitty old wheels. The wheels are, if I was to try and find replacement, even steel rims, the quad bite wreckers around me want around $100 each for them. I've decided I'll go ahead and try and fix these rather than spend that sort of money on getting replacement ones. Replacement ones would still be 30 years old and probably quite rusted, potentially dented as well. So this slotted business, I don't know why that was ever done. Maybe it was that these wheels are 140 pitch circle diameter. Maybe they were cut out so that they would fit on a bike that takes 137 pitch circle diameter, and I don't know what type of bikes do that, but I've heard people talk about 137 pitch circle diameter. It's just a crude way of making these wheels fit something else. With them welded up, like I am painstakingly doing, I think I'm going to resolve the problem in a temporary fashion, at least anyway. These are a couple of front wheels that I've repaired and painted. These are the ones that they all had notches cut out around every lug nut, and you can see the pieces that I've made up to fit in, and they've just a bit of tack weld, chicken shit again, making a fairly round hole for the bolts to go through, and the main thing is the thickness is there in the gap to stop the nuts falling into the groove and loosening off. These wheels have been wire brushed, phosphoric acid coating to try and convert the rust, the welding done. This is a shot of galvanizing paint. I'll pick up the can here. Zinc gal, cold galvanizing coating. It actually sets quite flat, and I may well put a glossier top coat on. There's some rear ones there. That's how they've sort of finished off. Fairly dull, very flat. I've got those mounted to the front of the bike at the moment just to have it still sit up on the angle. Now that I've finished the welding, I can take this hub that I've been using as a jig back to the bike. And you can see where I'll clean this disc up. This is the left rear. I'll clean this disc up where the weldings come through and give this spider another clean up. Yeah, that's the old left-hand rear swing arm in the vise there. That was laying out in the paddock, and the bearings in that seem fine, a hell of a lot better than the ones that were in the 94 bike. I'll be hanging on to those. I've got a couple of ideas in mind. I'd actually like to make up swing arms that I kept the wheels vertical rather than swing like they do, which means that you need a double A-frame arrangement. And I may use those hubs for that. Anyway, I can move forward now that I've got 4 reasonable wheels. I wouldn't call them perfect by any means. They are still quite shit, and I would like to get hold of 4 much better wheels, but I'll make and do with what I've got. This is just a reminder of what it looked like when I dragged it home. Get out to your shed and have some fun.